Good morning, I'm Angelo Castro III.
I'm Angela, and we are the Castros.
We bring you the news.
And the views that make you think.
Sometimes we agree.
Sometimes we don't.
This is News and Views.
And here are today's headlines.
Vice President Sara Duterte braces for her impeachment trial, calling for a, quote, bloodbath, and saying her legal team is in full throttle.
12 winning senators of Bilang Pilipino 2025 have been formally proclaimed by the Commission on Elections.
Over 60 billion pesos worth of illegal drugs have been seized since President Bongbong Marcos took office in 2022.
And Pope Leo XIV is officially installed as the 267th pontiff in a historic mass at the Vatican.
First in the news, Vice President Sara Duterte says she was not surprised by Chel Jokno and Laila de Lima joining the prosecution panel for her impeachment. Here's our report.
Vice President Sara Duterte says she is prepared for her impeachment trial, declaring she wants a, quote, bloodbath. Duterte vowed to face the process head-on regardless of the outcome.
As lawyers, alam naman natin ang galawan ng mga abogado, no? Marami silang mga paraan sa batas as a legal recourse for their clients. But sinabihan ko rin talaga sila, really, I truly want a trial because I want a bloodbath talaga.
She added that her legal team is now in, quote, full throttle, exploring all possible remedies to defend her case. The Vice President also said she has already made peace with whatever verdict the Senate may hand down.
Wala akong expectations of acquittal or a verdict guilty. Basta sa akin lang ay tinanggap ko na kung ano yung magiging verdict. Whether guilty man yon or acquittal, I'm already at peace.
But according to her, it is too early to predict how senators will vote as they have yet to examine all evidence.
Hindi ko alam kung paano boboto ang mga senators. If at all there will be a trial, I think it is wrong to start counting votes now because they haven't seen evidence yet. They haven't seen what the prosecutors have. They haven't seen what our defense is. So parang mali siguro na magbilingan ng boto ng walang trial.
The VP also said she was not surprised that incoming party list Representative Chel Jokno and Laila de Lima accepted the offer to be part of the prosecution panel.
Well, understandable. Kay Laila de Lima and kay Chel Jokno, they've been very vocal anti-Duterte since birth. Yes. In fact, wala pa sa mapa si dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte to become president, ay anti-Duterte na talaga si Secretary de Lima. So, understandable na sasali sila sa prosecution ng impeachment case.
The Senate is set to begin the impeachment trial by July after President Bongbong Marcos's fourth State of the Nation address. For News 5, Bril Montalvo, we are One News.
President Bongbong Marcos admits he expected better results from the midterm polls, but he's urging everyone to move forward and leave politics behind. Here's a report.
Of the 6 senators who won under Alyansa para sa Bagong Pilipinas, only one attended the Thanksgiving party held on May 17 at their headquarters in Mandaluyong. Only Senator Lito Lapid showed up. He expressed his gratitude to everyone. President Bongbong Marcos was also present during the event. He openly admitted that he had hoped for better election results, but insisted that now is the time to put politics aside for the good of the nation.
Wish we had better results, but we live to fight another day. Now it's time, I think, to put all the politics aside. It's time to put all of the issues that were raised during election.
He emphasized that the focus should now shift to critical issues like education, agriculture, and the urgent need to lower food prices, especially with only 3 years left in his term.
Sana naman, ako lagi kong binibilang ang araw na natitira sa term ko. At kailangan matapos natin yung mga nasiguraan natin.
The president also expressed his appreciation to the media for providing candidates with a platform to broadcast their messages.
Alam namin na napaka-importante ng inyong ginagawa. The media sector of our campaign was very successful, and I think that we were able to put out and occupy the narrative space very, very well, as a matter of fact. So that is what I would like to thank all of you.
Some senators are calling for an evidence-based impeachment trial against Vice President Sara Duterte. Here's the report.
The COMELEC proclaimed the 12 winning senators in Bilang Pilipino 2025 on Saturday. In her speech, re-electionist Senator Amy Marcos mentioned her family, including her mother, former First Lady Imelda Marcos, but not her brother, President Bongbong Marcos. She did acknowledge, though, former President Duterte and his daughter, Vice President Sara. Recall that Amy exited Bongbong's alyansa and was instead endorsed by Sara.
Sa inyong lahat ang tagumpay na ito, kahit gaano kailap at kahirap, ay isang katibayan na kapag ikaw ay nanindigan para sa tama, mananalo ka.
Next were Senators-elect Lito Lapid, Camille Villar, Pia Cayetano, Tito Soto, Ping Lacson, and Rodante Marcoleta. Kiko Pangilinan was not able to attend the proclamation due to his daughter's graduation, but in a statement, Pangilinan said he is ready to accept the mandate given to him. Senators-elect Erwin Tulfo and Bato de la Rosa have also been proclaimed. De la Rosa said his votes can be considered protest votes against the imprisonment of former President Duterte.
Nasaan ka man ngayon, President Duterte, sir? I dedicate this victory to you. Maraming salamat po. Also like to congratulate my Duterte PDP party mates for fighting a good fight. Natutunan ko sa inyo na pwede pala tayong mahalin ng taong bayan kahit wala tayong daladalang ayuda.
Senator-elect Bam Aquino, meanwhile, thanked his youth supporters.
Ito pong pagtakbong ito ay kakaiba talaga, no? Nagsimula po tayo napakalayo. Sa totoo lang po, wala ho tayo sa top 12. In fact, wala nga po tayo sa top 20 nung una po tayo nagsabi na tatakbo po tayo. Napakaraming volunteers, napakaraming kabataan na nagsuporta, lumabas, nagsalita, nag-post, nag-house to house, kaya po tayo umabot po dito.
This was followed by the proclamation of Senate race top-notcher Bongo. He thanked his mentor and inspiration, former President Duterte.
Huwag nating kalimutan ang kanyang mga sakripisyo para sa sambayanang Pilipino. Tinatandaan ko palagi ang sinasabi niya noon sa akin, just do what is right. Gawin lang ang tama at hindi ka magkakamali.
In ambush interviews following the proclamation, some senator-elects gave their comments on the impending impeachment trial of VP Sara.
Nakita ko kasi kung paano nila inilatag. Mali ang batayan, mali ang proseso. Kasama ako, di ba? So mula doon, alam ko na kung anong gagawin. Secret.
Palagay ko yung katibayan ang maghahari sa lahat. Wala pang paglilitis, wala pang pinapakitang ebidensya hanggang talagang magkaroon ng mga katibayan na makakapagkumbinsi sa atin, hindi naman maaaring magsalita.
Paano ka na-convict kung wala namang ebidensya? O napakawik ng ebidensya? Ngayon, paano ka mag-a-acquit kung napakatibay naman na ebidensya? So dapat evidence-based, lagi nakabase sa ebidensya.
Now in other news, people flocked to Kadiwa stores in Metro Manila to purchase 20 peso per kilo rice. In Taguig, some people were given first aid after losing consciousness. Some buyers called on the Department of Agriculture to expand the rollout of cheap rice. The DA earlier admitted that they are still working on logistics aspect of the program.
Kanina katabi ko pinaupo doon sa may electric pan na din, hindi makahinga. Dalawa na yung na-stroke. Kawawa pa kami magpila. Ang daming tao.
Dapat kalahatan na. Hindi yung pinipili lang.
The Department of Agriculture has lifted the maximum suggested retail price or MSRP on pork following requests from industry players. Agriculture Secretary Francisco Chu Laurel said the severe shortage of swine due to African swine fever and high consumer demand have made it hard to keep pork prices low. Before this, DA had capped prices at 380 pesos per kilo for pork belly and 350 pesos for shoulder cuts. The public is now urged to buy cheaper protein sources like chicken, fish, or frozen pork. DA says it is now working on new measures to stabilize supply and bring prices down in the coming weeks.
Now to talk more about that, we have DA Deputy Spokesperson Attorney Joycel Panlilio joining us on the line. Magandang umaga po sa inyo. Welcome to News and Views.
Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat.
Sige, as I understand po, yung pag-lift po ng MSRP natin dun sa pork ay due to requests from industry players. Can you tell us more about it, ma'am?
Ito po ay na-request ng ating industry players dahil medyo nakitaan din po kasi namin ng mababang compliance po yung ating nasa industry para po masundan yung ating maximum suggested retail price. Nasa around 30% lang po kasi ang naging pinakamataas na compliance dito. Kaya after po naming mapag-usapan ay napagdesisyonan na nga po ng ating kalihim na i-lift po muna ito habang tinitingnan pa rin po namin yung aming pong gagawin. Meron na po kaming solusyon na nakita na amin pong ipapabatid kapag na-finalize na po ito.
So habang ano po yun, maaaring nyo ba bang i-share kung ano yung mga iniisip yung solution para at least makontrol yung prices ng pork?
Habang amin pong pina-finalize itong solution ay patuloy naman din po kasi kami doon sa ginagawa naming pagpapadami po ng ating hogs. Meron po tayong ongoing na repopulation. Meron po tayong inilaan na ponda para dito sa repopulation program na 1 billion pesos po ito at nagpapamigay po tayo sa mga ating mga backyard farmers and even po sa ating large farms. Meron din po tayong nagiging partnership with the private sector to increase our supply of hogs in the market to prevent prices from rising. As you know, it's the law of supply and demand. So once medyo mababa ang supply ay tumataas po ang presyo.
Pero ma'am, I would like to ask you rin po regarding po doon sa mga small hog raisers natin, especially yung mga areas na affected po nitong ASF natin or yung African swine fever. What are we doing about this? And also yung matagal na po pinag-uusapan natin availability ng mga vaccines.
Meron na po kaming hinihintay na lang na approval from FDA. May na-endorse na po kaming isang vaccine para po kapag once na-approve na po ito, we will roll it out para po mapigilan na po natin yung pagkalat po ng ASF. At aside from this, waiting for the vaccine approval po for commercial availability, ay hindi naman po namin inaalis yung aming biosecurity, pag-implement ng biosecurity measures as well as yung ating mga checkpoints para po, usually po kasi yung ating, yung mga nagba-backyard, sila po yung may mga travels po ng ating mga hogs para po maiwasan ay mahigpit po ang aming checkpoints. Maiwasan na po yung paglagana pa po ng ASF.
Asek, ang dami rin kasi nagtatanong yung datos na gaano ka-apektado po ang market natin sa pork given na yung African swine fever medyong kumalat this last few months. Ano po ang may datos po ba kayo how affected we were?
Before the ASF in 2019, we have averaged 13 million heads of hogs. But now we only have like 8 million. So we want to reach the pre-ASF levels po ng ating hogs in 2028. Kaya nga po patuloy po yung aming tinatawag na INSPIRE program. Ito po ang aming repopulation measure as well as implementation of biosecurity measures and vaccination also.
Okay, so going back po doon sa ating pagtugon sa mga request po or sa request ng mga industry players, I understand, nabanggit niyo po kanina na mababa po yung compliance kasi na mga na nagpapatupad po ng MSRP sa mga pork natin. But what are we going to do po para ma-safeguard yung ano natin? Wala pong abuse in the market, no? Pagdating po sa presyohan, lalo na syempre sabi nga po nila mas parang pinapanigan na po ngayon yung mga industry players ano kumpara doon sa mga hog farmers or hog raisers.
Of course, we are balancing po yung ating interventions and our approach po sa ating producers and sa ating mga consumers. So also to protect our consumers, we have active coordination and collaboration with the Department of Trade and Industry and also with our law enforcement like with our Philippine National Police to ensure na wala pong nananamantala sa ating mga retailers sa merkado na magkakaroon po ng pagtaas or hindi na po makatarungang presyo ng ating pork sa merkado. At kung ito po ay makitaan natin na nag-amount na po ito sa profiteering ay hindi po mag-aatubili ang gobyerno na sampahan po ng kaso itong mga nananamantala po sa presyo sa merkado.
And
meron po kasi tayong Price Act.
Right. Pero are we also seeing po more importation po ng meat products, pork meat products po natin?
Actually, meron po pag-i-import ng pork ngayon, like also meron din po tayong yung tinatawag na minimum access volume na kailangan din po nating tumanggap na mga importation ng pork. Ito po ay makakatulong naman din po sa pagbalanse po ng presyo sa merkado dahil madadagdagan po ang ating supply. At kung makikita po ninyo sa aming price monitoring ay available pa rin po sa merkado yung ating mga frozen pork at medyo mas mababa nga po ang presyo nito kaysa po doon sa ating locally produced na mga liempo, kasim, at yung ating po mga sabit ulo.
Okay. Ma'am, tanong ko na rin po, taking this opportunity to ask you regarding yung ating 20 pesos per kilo rice na binibenta po sa ating mga kadiwa. Update on that, nakita po natin sa ating mga news kanina, sa ating news report na may mga nahimatay po dahil mga nakapila po sila dun sa 20 pesos per kilo rice. Are we planning soon po yung pag-expand po ng pagbenta nitong mato sa mga kadiwa stores?
Sa katunayan po, patuloy naman po yung aming pag-expand. So, every week at sa mga susunod na buwan, ay talaga pong dinadagdagan namin yung mga size ng aming mga kadiwa stores. At saka yung pag-engage po namin sa local government units ay patuloy naman po ito. Dinadamihan po talaga namin. But gaya po nang nabanggit before, ay yung pag mga kadiwa po ay for the vulnerable sector. But for the local government units po na nagbebenta po ng P20 ay it's up to them po kung kasama po ang lahat. Pero by phases nga po ang aming pagpapalawig ng lugar para sa P20 kaya asahan po naman ng ating mga consumers na madadagdagan po ang lugar kung saan po sila pwedeng bumili ng P20.
Okay, lastly po, Asek, now that we are seeing the movement po of our rice stocks sa NFA through selling nga po ng mga rice natin na per 20 pesos per kilo na bigas, are we seeing also in the future na masusustain natin ito? Kasi hanggang kailan po kakayanin ng NFA na sa warehouse po natin ng mga supply itong programa na ito?
Hanggang ngayong December 2020 po ay 2025 ay kayang-kaya pong suportahan ng NFA ito pong aming 20 pesos per kilo na programa. At sa mga susunod pong mga taon ay atin pong sisikapin, nagkakaroon po kami ng pagkukwenta para po masiguro na atin pong masusustain hanggang 2028 itong pagbebenta ng P20. Sa ngayon po ay sigurado pong meron po tayong stock hanggang sa katapusan ng taon.
Lastly po, Asek, I'd like to ask lang, aside from yung 20 pesos per kilo rice sa kadiwa stores, nasa programa or plano pa rin ba ng DA ang to organically bring the prices of rice down to 20 na hindi sa kadiwa pero sa market mismo?
Yes po, kasi kasabay po nitong aming pagbebenta ng P20 sa merkado ay parallel po ang interventions o patuloy na pagbibigay ng tulong sa ating mga rice farmers para tumaas po ang ating production ng bigas. Ang aming pong target for this year ay 20.046 tons po ang aming kailangang tina-target na i-produce for the year. At ang yield po namin per hectare ay sinisika po talaga. Meron pong pagnanaliksik at pag-aaral para mas mataas pa po ang aming production per hectare po ng bigas.
So, kumbaga,
at para po pag mas maraming supply, mas maganda po ang magiging presyo at mapapababa po natin ito.
So ito ang long-term solution pa natin, ASEC?
20 million tons plus
20 million tons. Okay. Thank you.
Looking forward to that. Okay, maraming salamat po sa inyong oras. That was DA Deputy Spokesperson Attorney Joycel Panino.
Thank you and good morning po.
Good morning. Now we'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. Good morning. You're still watching News and Views here on One News. The Interior Department is urging LGUs to adopt cashless transactions. To support full implementation, the DILG said local governments are encouraged to pass enabling ordinances. According to the agency, this could be implemented for collecting taxes, fees, and other charges. This as digital payments are believed to not only improve transparency, but also efficiency and public convenience.
Kasi pag cashless ka, wala yung actual physical na pera, mahirap mangurakot. Di ba? Mahirap mag-red tape. It's because dumidiretso na sa coffers natin, sa treasury.
Saka may log yan ng system. Hindi mo yan, parang mahirap yan ang tawag yan, i-edit. Diba? Makikita mo yung sa transaction history.
Pero ngayon kasi madaming balita lumalabas for hindi nila lahat Pero those engaged in mga red tape activities pa rin. GCash na daw ang kalakaran ngayon or kaya mga wallets, mga Maya, lahat. So parang
disposable number.
Disposable number. I don't know kung paano, no. Pero dito maganda tong cashless transaction. It's because diretso na sa actual agency na nangongolekta ng fees, di ba? Like, kunyari, taxes, pwede ka nang dumiretso.
Well, this is expected naman talaga of us, I mean sa government, dahil moving forward, talaga digital na, di ba, ang mga transaction dito. Yun nga lang, ang nagkakaroon lang ng problema dun sa mga kababayan natin na hindi pa rin tech savvy, wala pa rin silang mga tawag dito yung mga e-wallets, 'di ba, na mga pang-transaction nila. So, pero if you're going to kunyari in your local government sa city hall mo, meron pa rin dong someone who will teach you.
Hindi mo nila mawawala Pero it's adapting a measure lang. So in other words, yan ang option. Kasi sometimes may ibang LGU.
This is the future kasi. We cannot, yun talaga yung nakikita natin.
May mga ibang LGU daw kasi na wala pang cashless transactions na formal, di ba? So at least, it's either you wanna pay physical cash or you wanna go cashless. May options.
Mas mabilis yan.
Mas mabilis. Alright, law enforcement agencies have seized over 60 billion pesos worth of illegal drugs since President Bongbong Marcos took office in 2022. According to the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agencies, 15,000 kilos of shabu, cocaine, and marijuana were confiscated, along with more than 136,000 ecstasy tablets. More than 145,000 individuals have also been arrested in over 107,000 anti-drug operations nationwide. Meantime, nearly 30,000 barangays have now been declared drug-cleared under the government's ongoing program.
In other news, the Commission on Elections, or COMELEC, is set to proclaim winning party list groups today, May 19. COMELEC Chairman George Garcia explained they needed 1 day after the senatorial proclamation last Saturday to prepare the venue. The proclamation will be based on results from 175 certificates of canvass from across the Philippines and overseas. Akbayan topped the official tally for the 2025 midterm party list raised with over 2.7 million voters. A total of 63 party list seats in Congress will be filled.
Now let's get some insights from Attorney Michael Yusinko, Senior Research Fellow at the Ateneo Policy Center.
Suki!
Attorney, good morning.
Good morning to both of you. Maganda kasi yung topic natin ngayon na pag-uusapan, kaya nandito ako ulit.
Yes. Baka naman, attorney, you could be a professor this morning and explain to us yung computation ng seats sa party list. Kasi a lot of us don't really understand it, how it's computed, how the 63 seats are filled.
Unfortunately, Angelo, pareho tayo, no? So, I think, but that tells a lot, no? Na kahit kaming mga nag-aaral ng batas regularly, kahit sino tanungin mo, actually, they will first say na, actually, namin naintindihan din, But that's really the problem, no? Natumbok natin yung problema, Angelo, na the party list system is not working as it was intended to be by the Constitution. No?
That's right.
Because of, number one, very poor law design, yung party list law. And second, and I think this is the more critical part of this, is that Supreme Court decisions have made it even more confusing.
Yeah.
No? So right now, kumbaga, I'll do my best to simplify it. Ang nangyayari lang is, so there's first round of counting. Now, if you get at least 2% of the votes, you get one.
One seat. So is that every 2% or sa unang 2% lang may 1 ka?
So, kakamot ulit. Bagsak na ako sa recitation nito. So, sa unang bilangan, kung napuno na yung 63, meaning to say there are 63 party lists who got at least 2% of the votes. I do not know if that's mathematically even possible. Then they get one seat each.
Okay.
Now, kung hindi mabuo yung 63, they go to a second round. And then nagkakaroon na ng ranking. Right? Kung sino yung pinakamarami, they get a maximum of 3 seats.
Yes.
So, additional 2. That's a maximum. That's a ceiling. Hindi pwede mag-exceed doon.
Totoo. So, dapat daw yan sa first, yung top na party list natin, mga 6% dapat yung vote niya. Kaya makakuha siya ng top na 3, no, maximum seats sa Kongreso. Pero ang tanong dito kasi, Prof, nakita naman din natin, base ulit dun sa mga naging survey, no, ng mga ilang survey firms regarding this party list. Hindi nga po nag-number 1 itong Akbayan It's really different from what happened ngayon dun sa result. Ang Akbayan, laging tail end siya, diba? At ang mga nagna-number 1, yung mga kilala natin na mga pangalan ng mga party list. So what do you think happened here, Prof?
So, there may be a lot of explanations, and I'll try to offer 2.
Yes.
No? So, the first one is really the great effort of Senator Risa Ontiveros to amplify the profile of Akbayan with her work as senator. No? Kasi kita mo naman, in the past 3 years, halos every headline is caused by Senator Risa's investigation in the Senate. No? So, I can say that na-raise talaga yung profile ng Akbayan dahil sa kanya. So, that's just one. That's partly it. The second possible reason is, sa tingin ko kasi yung Gen Z and millennial voters, they really decided to vote for non-dynastic candidates na obvious sa kanila. No? Yung nakita nila, oops, itong kandidatong to, sabihin na natin sa party list na to, klarong-klaro na non-dynastic to Akbayan, kilala namin na non-dynastic, yung mga nominees nila non-dynastic, will vote them. Sa tingin ko, isa yun sa mga dahilan kung bakit rumagasa, basically, yung Akbayan dyan sa party list election.
Could it be more of, attorney, na more of your first na sinabi mo about the endorsement power of Senator Risa Ontiveros, because there was a tagline that Senator Risa had when she won the Senate seat amongst a sea of Duterte candidates back then in the last election. No? They called her the last man standing was a woman. So parang siya yung nag-iisang opposition. She was the only one who made it in. So parang, oh, she has a political base. And now we're seeing that every time she appeared with Attorney Shell Jokno sa social media, the engagement was very high. So are we seeing a possible new generation in endorsement?
Yes, certainly. That's possible. Kasi syempre, kumbaga, it is the way that they also presented that narrative that appealed to the Gen Z and millennial voters, no? Kaya lang, I will just push back a little bit by saying that really at the core of that, or underpinning that, yung sinasabi mo, Angelo, is more for me is that anxiety about dynastic politics.
Yeah.
Especially given in this election na yung media, kayo, halos talagang you made an effort to make sure that voters knew about the malevolence of dynastic politics. So, pinag-uusapan lagi na hindi maganda to sa demokrasya, pinag-uusapan lagi yung ill effects of having, well-entrenched dynastic politicians in your LGU. So, I suppose there was a brewing anxiety that also fueled yung Gen Z and millennial voters really being appealed, finding appeal sa akbayan as led by Senator Risa Ontiveros.
May mga grupo nga po nagcha-challenge nga nung naging desisyon ng Korte Suprema, the one that you were talking about earlier, Prof, nung 2013 ruling na redefining kung ano ba talaga yung party list. Sabi nila hindi na daw okay lang kahit hindi ka mula sa marginalized sector but you have an advocacy. Parang gano'n, no? As long as you have an advocacy, pwede na maging party list, pwede ka na magpa-register as party list group. So, yun nga po, as I've said, may mga grupo na nag-challenge po dito sa ruling na to. And what happens now, kasi ang pinag-uusapan po dito talaga na ginagawang parang it's either training ground ng mga gustong sumabak sa politika or yung mga nasa politika na kailangan lang magpahinga ng mga terms nila pero gusto pa rin nilang nasa loob pa rin ng government.
Both, no? It's being abused in both ways. The third way, of course, is the party list system has become another pathway for dynastic politicians to get into Congress. No? So, yung decision na yon actually, let's not go into detail, but ang masamang epekto nun actually is more of allowing nominees who are not part of the sector that they are representing, no? As long as they can show a link. Yun ang masakit dun kasi a party list can organize, let's say, for tricycle drivers, no? And then choose a nominee who is not a tricycle driver at all or not even an owner of a tricycle or something like that, no? So nangyari yan dati, di ba? Isang dynastic politician represented in Congress tricycle drivers and operators, no? So that's really absurd, di ba? Hindi dapat pinapayagan yon, but because of that Supreme Court decision, pwede.
That's right.
So really ang earlier statement ko, the party list system is no longer serving the purpose that was laid down by the Constitution. Na this is supposed to be a system where non-traditional politicians, meaning to say mga non-dynastic politicians, can get into Congress.
Right.
Hindi na ganun ang nangyayari ngayon.
Pero attorney, kasi I was, the other day I was reading that Supreme Court decision defining advocacy, no? Walang actual definition what an advocacy is. So parang it's a gray area. Hindi ba, attorney, in the spirit of the law, pag walang exact definition ng isang ruling, you go back to the spirit of the Constitution. And the very spirit of the Constitution is the party list is supposed to give a voice, tanggalin na natin yung word marginalized, is supposed to give a voice to those na kulang sa loob ng Kongreso. So if you have party list like BFF, yung kunyari, supposedly, hindi defined. Ano ba ang advocacy ng BFF? Supporting the family. Hindi ba that's against the spirit of the Constitution? Should we then challenge, somebody should challenge the definition of advocacy?
Not challenge in the Supreme Court, but really urge COMELEC.
Yeah, to define.
Kasi the first gatekeeper is COMELEC.
Yeah.
So COMELEC has the authority to really provide clear parameters, which I think si Chairman Garcia is now trying to do, right?
Yeah.
So COMELEC is empowered by the Constitution, by the way, to be the gatekeeper of this parliament, this party list system.
Yeah.
So they can, giving due respect dun sa batas and also dun sa Supreme Court decisions, to fill in these kinds of gaps, no? So pwede nila sabihin na kailangan ng advocacy is like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They can also add additional requirements, like if you are a nominee, you have to show that in the past couple of years you have been active in this sector, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So COMELEC has the wherewithal to do all of those things to sort of fill in the gaps that we're seeing now. Tapos, kung sino merong gustong questionin yan, they can go to the Supreme Court and question it again, and then allow the Supreme Court to legislate again in this particular instance.
Lastly, before I get to Angel, attorney, ang sinasabi kasi ni Chairman George, ang nagiging problema is parang ang COMELEC is ministerial ang pinaka-power nila, and he was hoping sana na to give more teeth or power in the way they create guidelines for the filing of a party list of actual parties and candidates. So do you think we should craft a law giving more power to COMELEC?
Well, I'm not saying that COMELEC overstepped its authority, no. Kaya lang, it's just in my view that they have that power to fill in the gaps dito sa party list system. But to answer your question, yes, ultimately we have to revamp the party list law, because ultimately that's the way to fix the system, to fix what's broken in the system, is to go to the law itself. Kasi sa saligang batas natin, ang sabi ng Constitution, yung Kongreso, sila dapat ang magpatupad ng party list system by establishing the mechanism. So doon sila nag-fail in 1995, which the Supreme Court tried to correct in several decisions. So kung gusto natin talagang ayusin itong party list system, make it align once again doon sa intention ng mga drafters ng Constitution natin, then Congress has to revamp, overhaul the party list law, which si Congressman De Lima will try to do in the 20th Congress. So that's something to look forward to.
Kasi 'di ba, parang supposedly dapat merong mga marginalized sectors nga na representante doon. Kung mga magsasaka, dapat totoong magsasakay nandoon kasi mas alam niya kung ano yung kailangan ng isang magsasaka.
Kaya yung magsasaka tumakbo sa Senado dahil wala daw pag-asa sa party list.
Walang pag-asa sa party list, 'di ba? Yung mga vendors, meron nga silang vendor pero pang-apat na nominee. 'Di ba? Paano uupo yung pang-apat na 'yun, 'di ba? So talaga nakikita mo na parang talagang nagagamit lang. But with your observation, Prof, are there noticeable trends in the types of party list ngayon na nakakaupo, no, in the history sa Congress po natin dito sa Pilipinas?
Certainly, with the exception of Akbayan, in this election, the trend really was going towards the party list system being another pathway for dynastic politicians. Kasi nakita na namin na maraming mga party list parties na talagang ginawa lang ng mga dynastic politicians para idagdag nila na, sige, yung asawa dun muna o yung anak dun muna. No? Example lang, yung party list ni Speaker Romualdez, di ba? Yung asawa niya, I think, is a nominee of that party list. At the same time, siya yung speaker. So, sabay sila without necessarily parang getting the spot of other legislative districts dun sa bailiwick nila. So, maraming party list kami nakita na ganon ang sistema, no? Yung style na tinayo, tapos yung mga nominees dynasties rin. So sabay-sabay na sila tumatakbo with the legislative district.
So para mapapansin mo yung mga pangalan ngayon ng mga party list, parang itinutunog nila doon sa mga, alam mo, catchy o yung mga popular na pangalan, 'di ba? Para mas maboto sila. So I think yun yung isa sa mga gagawin ng COMELEC na kapag daw katunog ng mga TV show or whatsoever.
Hindi, not only that, para attorney,
hindi na nila papayagan.
Yung isang gusto ko tanongin sa'yo, attorney, for example, di ba, sa Congress, meron ka ng representative. Kunyari, let's go to Bicol. Di ba? Meron ka ng congressman doon sa mga districts niya and then tatayo ka ng party list using the name Bicol also. So parang ano yung advocacy mo? Representing Bicol, but may Bicol congressman ka na, di ba, attorney? Things like that.
It's absurd, right? It's crazy na ganun yung nangyayari na, like I said, no, we are totally moving away from the design, the constitutional design. Kasi tingnan mo yung batas, malinaw yung constitution malinaw na the party list system was designed for sectors, no? Magsasaka, mangingisda. These are the ones who were underrepresented before the 1987 Constitution. And therefore, yung mga drafters natin, sige, bigay na natin sa mga dynasties yung legislative, no? Mga traditional politicians. Let's open up 20% of Congress, of the House, to underrepresented, non-traditional political groups. Ibigay natin to sa kanila so that kahit paano they can check the growth of the dynastic politics in the House. Pero, well, hindi ganun nangyari.
Unfortunately.
Dahil nga dun sa poorly designed party list law.
Well,
yan na lang natin na mapoproclaim na yung ating mga nanalong party list today at 3 p.m.
3 p.m. Alright.
Alright, with that, maraming salamat po sa inyong oras, Attorney Michael Yusinco, Senior Research Fellow at the Ateneo Policy Center. Magandang umaga po.
Maraming salamat.
Don't go away because we're not done yet. Please stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching News and Views here on the One News. Some Filipinos in Myanmar are pleading for help, saying they are being forced to work as scammers. The details in this report.
Thanks to a hidden cell phone, 7 Filipinos in Myanmar were able to record a video and are now asking to be rescued. They are just a few of over 100 Filipinos reportedly being held in so-called scam farms. According to alias Bella, those who refuse to work as online scammers are detained in isolation rooms without electricity, water, or adequate food.
We are here in isolation area for almost 2 months. The company get our personal phone. Each person here, 7 people here, they confiscated our phone, personal phone.
Others say they're terrified of being taken to what they call a torture room at any moment. In footage obtained by News 5, some workers suffered broken bones from severe beatings. Another video shows a worker with a swollen foot due to repeated abuse.
I don't want to go home. We can't take it anymore, all of the pain, all of the suffering that we are encountering here. Please, I am begging you.
The usual entry point for these workers is through Thailand before they are brought to scam farms.
May mga nababalitaan ako na may mga nire-recruit pa rin. May mga pumupunta pa rin. Ito naman, hindi lang naman sa ang punta hindi lang naman sa Myanmar. Meron din pumupunta ng Laos, pero dito sa Cambodia, pero ang transit country nila is dito pa rin sa Thailand.
The Department of Migrant Workers is warning against accepting job offers abroad without contracts or valid work visas. The public is also advised not to fall for cross-country schemes promising jobs in one country after entering through another. Mobile journalist Tamia Chenza We are One News.
With ICC prosecutor Karim Khan taking a temporary leave, one of his deputies is expected to take the lead. ICC Assistant to Counsel Attorney Cristina Conti believes that it could be Deputy Prosecutor Mami Madiange Niang. Niang was the one who signed the request for the issuance of an arrest warrant against former President Rodrigo Duterte. On Saturday, the ICC confirmed Khan's decision to take a leave pending the results of sexual misconduct probe.
Let's discuss that further with ICC Assistant to Counsel Attorney Cristina Conti.
Hi, Attorney. Good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Okay, sige, tanong na lang po natin na ito po bang temporary pag-leave ni Karim Khan dito sa being a prosecutor sa ICC, do we see a delay or kumbaga parang pagbabago, maapektuhan po ba yung ating dito sa pagdinig po ng kaso kay Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte?
Substantially, wala kaming nakikitang delay na lalabas dito sa administrative leave niya. Kasi in the first place, nung inisyu nga yung warrant of arrest, in-announce naman niya at sinabi niya ng in charge na sa Philippines Unified Team, IC, Madiange Niang. Kumbaga, parang Secretary of Justice sa atin, di ba? Hindi naman siya yung in charge sa lahat ng kaso. So si Niang na talaga ang in charge noon pa man. Dito sa pagpapahuli kay Duterte and eventual pagbukas ng confirmation of charges hearing. So sa trial, bagaman, syempre, usually kasi sa trial, si Karim Khan ang magsasalita. Or siya yung parang lead. Sa trial, kung aabutin ang leave ni Khan hanggang September 23, ang tatayo para sa prosecution ay si Niang.
So yung leave niya, attorney, ni Karim Khan, this is just a temporarily pending investigation. Assuming na everything goes well, makakabalik siya in time for trial?
Naku, this is the first time that a prosecutor has done so. In fact, Karim Khan is only the third prosecutor of the court. Kaya walang nangyaring ganito dun sa previous two na nagkaroon ng, well, nagli-leave sila, I guess, vacation leave, etc. na leave.
Yes,
Kaya medyo kakaiba ito, kaya kakapain ng OTP. Pero sa takbo kasi or sa system ng trabaho nila, meron naman silang may kanya-kanyang team na in charge sa bawat kaso o sa bawat investigation. Sa ngayon, ang ICC may parang 4 na tumatakbong kaso, hearings. At yung isa nga lang doon, yung parang ka-level natin, yung parang nagsisimula pa lang. Yung dalawa kasi, medyo patapos na. So yung Said case at saka yung Philippine case, yung Duterte case, ito yung parang tututukan sa susunod na ilang taon, palagay ko. Maliban kung may maaresto sila sa Ukraine or sa Palestine. Pero mukhang dito sa dalawang kasong to, ang mata ng lahat. Walang kaming nakikitang delay pa, lalo na nung last week, halos kasabayan on the last day of the week, nag-announce yung ICC ng deadlines dun sa mga pending issues na nasa kanya.
Yeah.
So,
yes. Right. But what about the momentum? Sabi nga nila kasi si Karim Khan, siya yung talagang nakakaalam, kabisado itong kaso na ito, no, particular kay former President Rodrigo Duterte. So with his leave of absence, baka yung momentum, 'di ba, nung kaso na to maapektuhan din daw.
That would best be addressed to the Office of the Prosecutor kung kakaiba nila. Pero yung tingin namin, as again, si Niang ang head ng Philippines Unified Team. Ito yung both investigation and the core legal team. Kaya hindi ko naman din masabi na bagaman si Karim Khan ang may kabisado, hindi rin ibig sabihin na baka kabisado din naman talaga ni Niang. Kasi siya nga yung nag-lead. May bago nga silang pauso pauso talaga. Meron silang tinatawag na tracking and monitoring ng information unit or section. So itong information tracking section, bago in the sense na ano ba yung mga impormasyon na pumapasok, kailangan ma-categorize, kumbaga ma-file lahat. Kaya dito namin nakikita na pumasok, di ba nagbuka sila ng witness appeals page para sa Pilipinas? Yun lang Pilipinas lang yung may specific website. Merong website or merong page or merong microsite sa ICC page na pwede kang mag-reach out sa OTP. Pero yung witness appeals, gumawa ng separate para sa Pilipinas. Kaya palagay namin, yung pumapasok doon, nasa loob itong bagong section at kumbaga, ayos na, process yung information na nakakarating doon sa investigation team. Kaya tingin ko, hindi naman kumbaga malaking aberya ang kanyang
So kumbaga ika nga they have built kumbaga institutional groundwork already na kahit sino man yung mag-lead ng council na yan ng panel pala ay tuloy-tuloy naman kasi evidence-based naman, hindi naman tayo personality-based. But ang question din po dito kasi attorney, yung iba parang tinitignan po nila ito of course negatively doon sa paningin nila sa imahe ng mismong ICC. What's your take on that po?
Well, ako man, nakakasama sa imahe ng anumang institusyon na meron kang individual na may ganito palang ginawa or nagawa. Considering that the charges or the allegations arise from work. So, just briefly, and I'm not privy to the details, pero this is from public records. It appears that yung sexual misconduct arose from occurred in certain instances that the prosecutor's team made country visits. So sa iba't ibang bansa pumunta sila, and then there was one incident that they say happened at the house of the prosecutor. So kumbaga nangyari ito habang magkatrabaho sila. Kaya nakakabigat. Pero ang maganda dito na kumbaga, wala akong masabi sa personality. Hindi ko kilala personally si Karim Khan. Hindi ko kilala yung nagreklamo. Pero para sa akin, positibo na nagkaroon ka agad ng investigation. Naka-step in agad at kumbaga, naisip agad na kailangan merong independent investigating team. At itong independent investigating team ang trumabaho simula pa last year. Yung tingin ko lang, posibleng patapos na ang kanilang findings by this year. Kaya minabuti na rin ni Karim Khan na, sige, mag-leave na rin ako in anticipation na paalisin ako. Sabihin na natin, ang i-recommend ay that he be dismissed or that he cut his term short. Di wala na siya sa eksena or hindi siya currently in office. At the same time, it builds the resilience of the unit of the Office of the Prosecutor from further activities or further sexual misconduct allegations.
Lastly po, attorney, on the other note naman po, kamusta po yung mga, kumbaga, yung mga testigo po dito sa kaso na to, knowing na nanalo po si Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte bilang mayor ng Davao? How are they taking this? At saka nalalapit na rin po, ilang months na lang din yung confirmation of charges.
So, yung mga biktima na ang participation ay either bilang testigo o kaya bilang participating victims, kasi ano pa yan entirely different. Ang sense nila ay parang, uy, anong nangyayari? At syempre, may kaunting pangamba. Pero sa pagpapaliwanag, nadadaan naman na hindi ito makakaapekto maski dun sa schedule ng court. In fact, last Friday nga, nagbigay na yung schedule ng court sa deadline tungkol sa, ng comments tungkol sa, ang importante kasi dito yung substance, tungkol sa disqualification of judges. And then pangalawa, tungkol doon sa challenge to jurisdiction ng defense. So kung on track yun, yung pagbawas ng isang katao sa the OTP is composed of about 380 individuals, lawyers, investigators, etc. Yung pagtanggal ng isa, bagaman siya yung head, kumbaga, hindi ganun, kagat lang ng langgam, hindi naman kagat ng dinosaur ang epekto nito. Kaya yung mga biktima, with that information, parang kampante sila. Nag-aabang na lang kami ng schedule for the actual application for victims' participation.
Alright, sige. Maraming salamat po muli sa inyong oras sa ICC Assistant to Counsel, Attorney Cristina Conti. Magandang umaga po sa inyo.
Magandang umaga, salamat din.
And that's another episode of News and Views. And before we let you go, I'd like to leave everyone with a quote. Life is a succession of lessons which must be lived to be understood. Ralph Waldo Emerson. And that wraps up today's episode of News and Views.
Join us again tomorrow. I'm Angela Lagunsad Castro.
And I'm Angelo Castro III. We are One News.
All sides, all the time.